be last year's. I haven't recorded any of the lessons that we've done, but I taught intro second semester last year. Maybe I didn't filter them into grade 10 intro.
I don't know, because all of them said 2 years ago and 3 years ago.
Weird.
And they were like on a computer.
They were on the board, yeah. Living our best lives. Okay, step 1, we're going to take, and we're going to do it the long way. I know some of you might do it the quick way, if you remember what I said at the end of yesterday's lesson. So we need this knowledge to do the rest of the lesson. So first thing we're going to do is we're going to multiply the earmuffs of the trinomial. So 1 times 6, we'll make that a dot, equals 6. So we're going to be looking for the factors of 6, positive 6, ladies and gentlemen. So I don't know if that helps you if you put a positive sign there. What are the factors of positive 6 that add to 5? 2 and 3. If you're not sure, just start writing down the factors of 6. There we go. That's all of them. And this set would add up to 7, so that's not useful. 2 and 5, or 2 and 3 add up to 5. So we rewrite the middle term with these. These have to have x's on them. So it's going to be x squared plus 3x plus 2x plus 6. It is totally okay if you wrote the 2x first and then the 3x. That's totally okay. It works both ways. But this has to add to that, right? So they have to have the x's attached to them. I don't know if I stressed that enough yesterday, but I'm stressing it now. Which is almost as good as yesterday. Okay, then we look at the first 2 terms, and we're going to common factor them. So we have x times x plus 3 times x. So what am I going to take out of there? What's common between those 2 terms? X. Beautiful. So we're going to take an x out, and what's left goes in the bracket, x plus 3. And now we look at the last 2 terms. But remember, you got to take the sign in front of that 2, just in case it's a negative. And that's going to be 2 times x plus 2 times 3. And why didn't I use 1 and 6 for 6, the factors of 6? Because I'm looking for the greatest common factor. We want to take the biggest number out, right? So it's got to be the 2. And I just ruined all the fun. We're taking a 2 out, and it's a positive 2 we're taking out. So it's going to be add 2. So that's gone, and that's gone. What's left? X plus 3. Did I do it right? I know I did it right because these 2 things are the exact same. If they're not the exact same, then we haven't done it right. Okay, so I'm going to write down the binomial that is the exact same. I only write it down once. And if I cover that over, what's left? X plus 2, so that's my second binomial. And there you go, you factored. Yay, you guys. We're going to use the exact same steps on Monday when we do the complex factoring trinomial. And I'm going to move your quiz until Tuesday. Tuesday. Okay, I just wanted to review that. I hope you got that down and that was easy peasy. And we are on the bottom of page 23. Yeah. Of course. Yeah. All right. Okay, I just want to point out yesterday we did this one and I kind of had the screen frozen so you guys couldn't see it, but I'd rearrange this so that my highest exponent variable is first, and then all of a sudden that's like straightforward. Okay, so factoring sometimes involves more than one step. Anytime you start factoring, the first thing you should do, if there is a coefficient on that first term, if you have a leading coefficient, you should see if you can common factor it out. So if you have a leading coefficient, see if it is possible do you get LC, are you guys okay with that abbreviation? I'm saying that for leading coefficient. I do a lot of abbreviations in math just because I'm kind of a lazy writer. So if that doesn't work for you, or you're not, like, that's really, I know what I mean by that, but if you don't, make sure you write it all out. Okay, it's a -4. Can I take a -4 out of everything? I can. So -4 times t plus, so if I want to take a -4, like if it's a +4 and I want to make it a -4, what does it have to be multiplied to get it back to that +4? -1. People are having way too much fun. 128. Is 128 divisible by 4? Yeah. What's left over? 32? Yeah. 128 divided by 4? 32? We all agree with that? And again, I don't want to just take a regular 4 out. I want to take a -4 out. So I have to multiply that by a -32 to get it to be back to the +128. So the more comfortable you are with numbers and breaking them down and switching their signs and doing stuff like that, the easier this is going to be. If you're not comfortable with it, you got to practice. That's the only way you're going to get better. By copying or not doing, it's not going to improve your skills. So I'm going to take a -4 out. So then I'm left with t squared. So it's plus -1 times t. So that's really the same thing as saying subtract t, because -1 times t is just going to be a -t. And then plus a -32. That's just like saying subtract 32. Okay, can I factor that? Can I go further? Just because you did one type of factoring doesn't mean that you're done. So what are the factors of 32? I'll do the first one. 1 and 32. Anybody get another set? 2 and 16. 4 and 8. Anything else for 32? No, that's it, right? Like there's no 12s, there's no nothing. And it really wasn't a positive 32, but that's a good place to start. It was a negative 32. So really I'm looking at these factors and I should be subtracting them. Are there any that subtract to -1? Any of those? If I subtract them? What's 32 minus 1? Hopefully that's 31, everybody. That's not a coefficient of 31. 16 minus 2. 14. Not a coefficient. 8 minus 4. 4. Do any of them work? No. So we're done factoring, but you still have to check. Because just because you do one type of factoring doesn't mean you're completely done. I'm a big fan of putting like factoring inside of factoring. So hint, hint, nudge, nudge. That'll probably be in your future. Okay, we good with that? So much faster today. Factoring with a negative a value. Okay, first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to rearrange this because I can't see it like this. So I'm going to rewrite it. Remember that you always have to take the sign in front of the term. So I'm going to have a negative c squared plus 2c plus 35. If there's no sign, it's implied that it's a positive. watch is doing. Okay, so there's a negative in front of there. So the easiest thing to do is common factor out a negative 1. So what's that going to do to all the signs in that trinomial if I take out a negative? Well, let's try it. So this is like saying there's a negative 1 here, right? Everybody agree with that? So if I want to take out a negative 1, and this is c by c, and I want to take out a negative 1, what do I have to multiply negative 1 by to get it to a positive 2? Negative 2. And that's times by c. And then if I want to take out a negative 1 again from the 35, what do I have to multiply negative 1 by to get it to a positive 35? Okay. So we're going to take a negative 1 out of everything. And so I'm left with c squared minus 2c minus 35. I will tell you that you don't have to show me that step. When you common factor out a negative 1, and we know anything divisible by 1 is itself, if you take out a negative 1, what it does is it changes the sign. So c squared is now positive, the positive 2 becomes negative, the positive 35 becomes negative 35. So you don't have to show me this step. You totally can, but you don't have to. Okay, so now we're going to do the next step. The next step. Can we factor it? What are the factors of 35? Let me do the first one for you. There you go, 1 and 35. 5 and 7. What kind of 35 was it? Was it a positive or a negative? Negative. So what are we doing to these? We're subtracting them, right? Because one's got to be positive, one's got to be negative. So is it the 1 and 35 pair, or is it the 5 and 7? 5 and 7. Which one is the negative one? 7. How come?
Because it's like a bigger number, so we take that inside.
Perfect. Because we want it to get to negative 2, right? Not a positive 2. So the 7 has to be negative. Okay, here we go. So the negative 1 hangs outside. And then we're going to have c squared. I'll do plus 5c minus 7c minus 35. Okay, you guys finish that one. Finish factoring it. Oh, I skipped a bunch of steps and that wasn't a good plan. And I didn't use an erasable pen. Jeez Louise. I'll be better next time. Can I show you what I got? And I wrote down the answer. I didn't show my steps, which is bad form. So I need all pieces of this for the answer. I need that negative 1 I took out first, and then I need my 2 binomials. Because if I look at these first 2 terms, what am I going to common factor out? I'm going to take out a c, and I'll be left with c plus 5. And then when I look at these 2 terms, you could take out just a 7, but then that's going to leave you with a negative c and a negative 5. and you need this to be a positive 5. So I'm going to take out a negative 7, and I'm left with C plus 5. But you need all 3 pieces for the answer. Okay, how confident do you feel to do the next one on your own? Or do you want to go through it one more time and I'll show you all the steps? One more time, all the steps? Okay. First thing I'm going to do is I'm going to rearrange. N squared plus n plus 42. So if I have a negative coefficient on that highest exponent variable, I'm going to common factor it out. And I'm going to do it the quick way, ladies and gentlemen. I'm going to take that negative 1 out. And all that does is change the signs of every term. So I'm not going to do that big expansion like we did up here. I'm going to go with, I trust my math, and this is going to change to an n squared minus n minus 42. So what are the factors of 42? I'll do the first one. I know it's the hardest one. 7 and 6, I like it. So we have 7 and 6, but we're not looking for a positive 42 because that's a subtract. This is going to be a negative 42. So 7 and 6 is the right one, but which one is negative? The 7. For the same reason, we want that to be a negative 1, so the 7 has to be negative. So we've got negative 1 out here. N squared, we're rewriting that middle term, so it's going to be minus 7n plus 6n minus 42. We are going to look at the first 2 terms. And if you're still not feeling comfortable with the common factoring, we can write it out. So n times n, what's the coefficient on that? It's a 1, right? Not a big deal. This is going to be 7 times n. What are we going to take out of there? An n. So if I take out an n from both, I'm left with n minus 7. Now I'm going to pop over to these 2 terms. And we've got 6 times n minus 6 times 7. Nice, easy common factor. So what kind of 6 am I pulling out? Is it a positive or negative? Positive. So it's going to be add 6. So that's gone. And I'm left with n minus 7. So I write down the, oops, forgot my negative 1. That's got to keep coming down. I almost lost it. Don't lose it. It's bad, oh bad if you do. 7, n minus 7 is our one that is exactly the same. So if I cover those up, I'm left with n plus 6. And that is your answer. Okay. You guys good? One more. You're going to do it. You're going to be awesome. that negative 1 out first. Take that negative 1 out first. So what happens to those signs then? Can you go with the negative, right? Yeah. 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 I had to think about that for a second. So what kind of one? When you bring this one, that's going to be negative 10. Right? So you get to go to negative 1, which is changing all these signs. Yeah, so it's going to be negative 2. Looks good? No, it looks terrible. W. I'm going to use a W. Well, we have a negative A in front, right? You have a negative in front of your, so I'm looking at this, what are the factors of positive that add up to 15, 5. Today, we're adding something on to it.
It's not connected to this.
Well, it is connected to that. They're all connected, but yes, in a different way.
Sounds like my equation.
Those are fine, yeah, but so today, the added part is that these were all positive variables. Today, we're adding in that they're negative variables. So it's like the extra step that we're doing. Oh, it's hot in here. How'd you do? Hold it? An F. Because there's no negative weight in this one, right? We're going to common factor, you're taking up within that similar between these two terms. So you take an M, so an M here and an M here. I can't take out an 8 because I have an 8 here. Yeah, you gotta do them separately, right? Look at this first in common factor, like look at these two in common factor. Once you get that done, then I'm gonna go to in common factor. Yeah. Good? Yeah. Good? Sort of, kind of? Almost. Not quite. Okay. So you're using these two? Okay. You have to rewrite the
Although like compared to like
You just missed that one.
the real today, compared to like the actual picture like
Remember that we're looking for negative 8.
Yeah.
So we're subtracting these. And we gotta subtract
pretty
negative.
good, right? Even though it's not like
40 less 1 is
I mean,
not,
just the grill.
not negative 2, right?
Other than that, especially the regular, it's just a grill.
8 minus 6. What's 6 minus 8? Compare. Compare. Yeah. What's left? What's left in this term? Because you took the 2 and you took that and out. Oh, you get to take it over both terms, that's why it's common, right? So, yeah.
Little bottle.
Like you use brackets. Looks great. All right. I'm going to jump in. I know you guys, some of you are still working. I'm just there's a couple of things that I'm seeing. When you rearrange this, ladies and gentlemen, remember you got to take the term in front of it. So that's got to be a negative m squared. And that's going to be add 2m. And that's going to be, if there's no sign, it's going to be an add 48. If it was a subtract, it would be a negative number. So the difference between yesterday and today is that we have negatives on our big numbers. Okay, so I'm going to common factor, because I don't want a negative on this one, so I'm going to common factor out that 1. All that does is change the signs. So I'm going to have a positive m squared now, a negative 2m, and a negative 48. So now I'm looking at the factors of negative 48. I'll just start with 48, positive 48, because that makes the most sense. I'll just hop right to it. So it's not a positive 48 I want, it's a negative 48. So I know that these two signs are going to have to be different. One's going to have to be positive, one's going to have to be negative. So when this is negative, these signs are opposite and we're subtracting them. And I want to pick the pair that subtracts to the middle term's coefficient. So subtracts to negative 2. So this is going to be the negative, because negative 8, 6 minus 8 is going to give me that negative 2. Okay, so now I rewrite that middle term. Plus 6m minus 8m minus 48. So we're going to look at those first two terms. What's common? Are we getting good at this? Because it's the same thing over and over again. What am I taking out? Am I taking out a number or a letter from that first group? It's always a letter, right? It's always a letter. So what am I taking out? M. So this would be m times m plus 6 times m. And so you guys said I'm going to take out a m. So, geez Louise, m. M comes out of there, so I'm left with m plus 6. And then I'm going to look at these two. So you got to do it in steps, right? You got to look at the first two, common factor out. Then you got to look at the next two, you got to common factor out. So I've got negative 8 times m. And if I want to take out a negative 8 out of this, what's left? That's going to be a positive 6. So what can I take out of this one? I want to take out that negative 8. So that's gone, and that's gone. And that's a positive 6, so this is going to be left m plus 6. Close my brackets. I know I did it right because those two are the exact same. So I'm going to have my negative 1, my m plus 6, and I'm going to have my m minus 8. So there are patterns. There are repeated patterns in this. The steps are repeated. And the more you practice, the better you're going to get at it. Always take a letter out of the first two. Always take a number out of the second two. If it's a negative, these are going to be opposite signs, right? So there's things that happen over and over again in this. But if you don't practice, then you won't get the pattern. So that's the end of this lesson. This finishes simple trinomial factoring. This, ladies and gentlemen, is probably one of the hardest things in grade 10. And my grade 11 pre-calcs, they say, I hated factoring. And then by grade 12, it's like, oh, I've done it so many times, it's super easy. I'd much rather factor than use a quadratic formula. So we're starting with the hardest right off the hop. Okay, you guys have the rest of the period to finish the assignment.